I knew the body innately heals. It can't not.
A pocket of energy within myself.
This is for your mother. So just do this for her.
Let's figure out ways that we can actually use pleasure to come together and bring healing.
It's a modality where we go into your subconscious and change some of those limiting beliefs.
I'm Susan Marco, clinical hypnotist, and I have so many friends and people who have had big impact on my life, so I want to share them all with you. So, hello everybody. Susan Marco here with Trance Talks. Trance Talks, we know, is conversations with practitioners across many alternative modalities and disciplines. And oh my gosh, today I'm so excited. So first, I just want to tell you, it's 9:30, it's like 9:40 on the East Coast in the US. And my guest is in Melbourne, Australia. So it's like 11:40 in the morning there. So it's so funny to me like that we can have this kind of conversation on the other side of the world. But let me introduce Ash to you, Dr. Ashleigh Moreland. She is a PhD in neurophysiology. She is an expert in neuroscience, leadership, trauma, parenting, human behavior. She runs, as you can see, if you're watching this, you can see her backdrop. She has her own Remind Institute, and she also co-hosts her own podcast, the Remind Podcast, which if you're looking for another podcast to listen to, I highly recommend it. Oh my God, it's chock full of gold information. But what I really want to say about Ash, we met several years ago. We were in a training together and we've kept in touch since. And listen, Ash, you inspire me to be a better practitioner, but you also inspire me to be a better human. Yeah. And I'm like so excited and happy to have you here. I don't want to take up any more time. So I want you to, yeah, you're welcome. So just let my listeners know who are you and what do you do and how do you work with people and all that good stuff.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much. I am Ash. And I used to have so many other things that would come after that I am statement. And it's so interesting because a huge part of my journey has been really coming home to myself. And, like 5 years ago, I would have answered that as I'm a neurophysiologist, I'm a mum, I'm a wife, all these things. And I wear lots of hats. But at the core of who I am is I am Ash. And I love to empower people and equip people to identify what is the gap between who they are and who they want to be, or the life they have and the life they want to have, the business they have, the team they have, the relationship they have, and the one they want. And my magic, let's say, is my background was the nervous system, and I was a university lecturer for 12 years in this space doing mind-body wellness and holistic health and neuroscience of like learning and performance and human behavior and all this sort of stuff. And it's so interesting because I used to sort of say, if you looked at my CV on paper, it makes no sense. And I just sort of felt like I always went where the wind blew me. And my parents used to say, oh, she's got shiny light syndrome. Like I just used to go wherever I was led. And on paper, it always made no sense. And it wasn't until I really stepped into fully surrendering and trusting what I'm comfortable using the word God, but I'm not fixated on language. So whatever your listeners or you even are comfortable, universe, source, whatever it is for you, but I'm comfortable with the word God. So when I fully surrendered and, let's say, came into agreement with God's plan for my life, all of a sudden I could see how all of that random stuff from my past all was necessary to equip me for the way that I work with people now. And I love that because if I come back to where I am now, I use my expertise in the nervous system to really understand people's behavior, people's actions, people's reactions, people's stress responses. And as a neuroscientist, I had this like I wanted all the answers to be the brain. At the end of the day, I wanted the answers to be the brain. And I spent so many years researching this only to realize that the brain was not the answer. And the brain is actually creates more questions than answers, if anything. So in my own journey, I was looking at, I had a bit of a spiritual awakening, let's call it, several years ago, maybe 4 years ago. And I started to explore the concept of the mind, body, and spirit in a whole new way. And so the biggest thing that underpins my work is that even though my expertise is the nervous system, what a lot of people, and you know, at the most basic level, the nervous system is the system in our body made up of collections of nerves and neurons that runs the show. That drive the heart. It's connected to everything. The neuroendocrine system, the neuroimmune system, like it's literally connected to everything, right? And when I realized that, how could I be sitting in a room where nothing else about the room changes except where I focus my mind, and all of the parameters of my nervous system change when nothing else has changed except what my mind has thought about. And I really started unpacking that and went, oh my goodness, the mind and the brain are not the same thing. And even in all of the psychology discipline, we literally have this entire branch called mental health. The definition of the word mental is relating to the mind. And yet in the entire study of psychology, everything's about the brain and the nervous system, almost. And so I started looking at this going, there's something missing here. I was a customer of the mental health system for 20 years and had no understanding of the mind. What is the mind? How does it work? How does it drive my thoughts, actions, and behaviors? And I had experienced a lot of trauma in my life. So for me, understanding that the mind and the brain are not the same things, but they're related. My brain can't jump ahead and go to dinner tonight, but my mind can. My brain can't go back in time to the time when I was a child experiencing some kind of abuse, but my mind can. And in this moment, right here, when I look around and I'm safe, where my mind goes dictates to my nervous system how my body needs to respond. So my body is just purely responding to whatever the activity is in my mind, where it's going. So that's a bit of a long-winded story to get to my expertise now is about observing human behavior and using the body as our greatest source of wisdom. And even if things don't logically make sense, even if things are irrational, even if things we can't remember, even if our answer is, I don't know why I feel this way, to actually let go of that and go, we don't need to logically recall that in order to be able to resolve it. We don't need to have something make sense in order to just tune in to what our body is saying to us and respond with love and care. So a whole lot of my work is based around that. Like I'm trained in a whole heap of different mind-body modalities and soul-based therapy. I'm a clinical hypnotherapist. I'm trained in a whole heap of different things. But at the absolute basis of how I work with people, it's let's develop an absolutely unshakable and unbreakable relationship with your body where it is seen, heard, and safe, and allow your mind to be processed to come back to the here and now.
Wow. How brilliant. I love that. So what does that look like exactly? You know, when you're working with someone who has experienced a lot of trauma.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it, but you know, what does that look like?
Well, first of all, it's getting people to understand what trauma means. A lot of people think that trauma is the event. It's the big abuse, neglect, all the big traumatic events. And in my work, obviously, that's not to say traumatic events are not traumatic. So I implore you, don't hear what I'm not saying. But from a nervous system perspective, when I say to people, I don't want you to think like a rational, logical grown-up right now with your whole analytical brain. I just want you to think like a nervous system at the basic level of survival or connection. And we talk about things that are really, really simple. I'll say, for me to feel safe as a child, or for you to feel safe as a child, what do you think I would have needed to feel safe and loved and nurtured, to know that I was important? And they'll say exactly that. You needed to be cuddled, you needed to be held, you needed to be seen and heard and validated, and all of these things. For me, as a nervous system, anytime those innate needs were not met, that became a threat. And so this is never, ever, ever, ever about a bashing of parents or speaking negatively about our childhood. It's purely about developing that relationship with self and being able to identify where some of our needs may not have been met. And they may not have been met because our parents didn't even know how to meet them, or they didn't have capacity to meet them, or they were so busy loving you by putting a roof over your head and putting food in your tummy that it wasn't possible for them to have met it. And also, they didn't even know how to extract from you what you needed because they didn't know how to identify their needs and express their needs and receive their needs being met. And so there's all this stuff. So in my work, it's really about helping people to understand and gain compassion that their nervous system has a lot of unmet needs. And then behaviorally, they actually never had a framework for knowing what their needs were. In fact, most of us have a framework of shutting off from our needs and not hearing our needs because we either believed that they weren't important, they didn't matter, even if we had them, they wouldn't be met anyway. And so we give and give and give, and we people please, and we lack boundaries, and we exercise perfectionism and have all these things when it's all about our safety is based on externalized self. If I can control all of that, then I'm safe. If I can make sure you have a good opinion of me, then I'm safe because I need you to like me in order to be safe. I never learned how to develop an intrinsic, innate sense of safety independent of what was happening out there. So a huge amount of this is self-work, like I said, identity stuff. And also, I'm normally at my desk where I have my props, but a huge part of this is we generally grow up in a society where if this is us, our parents and caregivers spoke at us from a position of here, right? Almost never were we taught this, where they are moving through our struggles with us instead of at us. And that revelation for me was one of the most life-changing things. So my work has changed a lot. I used to do sessions which were really quite, structured, and I even used to use scripts in my work. And now my sessions are so unstructured that I actually had to check in from an integrity perspective and go, am I loving my clients as well as I can if I seemingly, logically appear to be unprepared? But it's taught me to have so much faith and so much trust in my innate wisdom and all of the culmination of training that I've had in my life to know that if I am just present in my mind, my body, and my spirit, that I have what is needed to lead them through whatever it is that comes up. So it's never the same. It's always different. Sometimes it just is made up on the spot, but it's the thing that they need to get the breakthrough. So There's no magic formula. I'd love to tell you there was.
But that's amazing. The magic formula is, as organic as the person who you're with, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're going to assess and determine and, figure that out as you go along together. I think that's just admirable, really. Excuse me.
Yeah, it was a scary place to get to, I think. And what I actually found is that when I was coming from a place of rigidity and a strong plan and scripting and thinking, oh, which of my processes out of my toolbox is going to help you the most right now? Me even thinking at that intellectual, structured level took me out of presence. And from a neuroscience perspective, presence and connection increases oxytocin. And oxytocin is our hormone that we release when we feel safe and loved and nurtured and connected.
Yeah.
And so what I found, and this was only through my own experience and evolution as a practitioner, what I found is that as soon as I took away my ego to need to have the answer, as soon as I took away my ego to want to follow instructions and want to do it right and want to do all of it, I made every session about me because I wanted to follow the scripts and I wanted to make sure it was right. And I wanted to make sure that I got the validation from them, that, all these things. And as soon as I threw all that in the bin and went, this isn't about me. This is about serving them to the highest possible level that I can possibly give them. Mm-hmm. And that means that I need to be able to be suspended in space with no backup plan, with no strategy, no script, no nothing, but be so deeply connected at a soul level in that moment that I can trust that I will be able to lead them through whatever it is that they need. Yeah. And that took a lot of growth for me because I was always a rigid, organized, structured systems, processes, planned, prepared kind of person, a control freak. I was a textbook control freak.
I can totally relate to that. Just saying.
Yeah. Yeah. And honestly, this is what my work has evolved to now is ironically, it was never intended. I have never, ever just advertised to business owners or anything like that. I'm a massive believer that we always get what we're meant to have. And it's just been the case that almost everyone in my group programs for the last 6 to 12 months have been business owners in some capacity or, executive level, corporate level people who are very structured, very rigid, organized because they are managers. And the difference between, I used to be management material. I used to get told that all the time. I used to be management material. And coming from a corporately structured environment previously, it was those higher level executive roles that I had my eyes on. And it was this big journey of understanding that actually management and leadership are not the same thing. And when I'm working with people, it is literally about having such, like I said, unbreakable and unshakable trust in your instinct and connection to yourself, and therefore all that is, to know that it's okay for you to not have all the answers, and it's okay for you to not know how you're going to move forward, but when you don't know.
That's amazing. And just, I can feel it a little bit. Like I could see how that would play out, of what a gift that is to be able to give to people in leadership. Like, how does that up level your leadership skill to be able to step into that trust?
Yeah. Right? And what does it say to the people you're leading? If it's okay and safe for you to not have all the answers, but to trust that you will figure it out and that everything's going to be okay, it also means that it's okay for the people you're leading to not have all the answers and trust that you're going to be able to figure it out and it's all going to be okay.
Yeah.
And I look at that and go, I don't want my team to be expected to know everything and have all the answers. That's irrational and illogical. But I want my team to know that there is no problem without a solution. And so I look at this and I think I'm really drawn to that leadership space, and that the people who have influence over others. And so when we think about leadership, we always think about business, but it's not just that. Like, I love working with parents. I won't work with children, but I will work with parents because children need to be led. It's not reasonable for me to just work with a child and send them home to dysfunctional leadership. That's not helpful for the child. So anywhere, like you'll see on my thing here, it says creating ripple effects that transform lives. For me, it's about, we all have the capacity to lead and influence others. What are we leading them and influencing them towards? And whether that's working with leaders of a business, when they have their transformation, it invites those who are being led are also leading in their lives. They're leading their homes, they're leading their families, they're leading their relationships, they're leading society in some way. They're leading themselves. And so when you then have a model and a frame of reference and a mentor for that healthy, heart-centered leadership that then ignites and inspires healthy, heart-centered leaders below them, not below, but being led by, mentored, discipled by, who then become those healthy, heart-centered leaders in their homes. Those kids grow up with that. It's so powerful. It's my favorite thing. I see it as a redistribution of wealth, but it's not money wealth. It's redistribution of a wealth that is not fiscal, but extremely valuable.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm glad you went there, because my next question for you would be, what lights you up? Like, who do you really love to work with?
Yeah. I love to work with the people who have complied with every perception of success that the world threw at them, and they achieved it, but they're deeply unfulfilled. And I love to work with those people because I know that when I can just be that little starter, that little flame starter in them, and lead them home to themselves, they can have a huge impact in the world. So it's that, for me, is the absolute, like, I love it. I love working with those people because it's so frustrating for them. They're like, I have all the money that I could possibly want or need. I have every level of success. I know how to run a successful business. I can do all this, but I feel dead inside. I know I love my family. I've worked my butt off for my family, but I don't feel connected to them. Or I know I love my kids, but I actually have no idea what that feels like in my body. I would literally die for my wife, but I have no idea what that feels like in my body. And I'm saying wife and kids because in my mind I was imagining a male, but it's anyone.
Yeah.
And when we can connect to that, and we can connect to our purpose, and we can actually develop that safety to, like I said, it's no longer what's out there, it's coming back to what's in here. When we can feel safe to reside back in our own body and have mind, body, and spirit alignment, only then can we feel deeply connected to others. Because the people think attachment is connection, but it's not. Connection is connection. And especially our romantic partner and our children, connection means they feel seen, they feel heard, they feel like they matter to you. And so if I literally just asked my 7-year-old the other day, I said, Elodie, do you ever feel like anything in mummy's life is more important to me than you? And she said, yeah. This was literally like just a casual conversation, by the way. I was brushing her hair, doing pigtails while she was playing with, I don't know, Barbies. And just casual conversation. She said, sometimes. And I was like, oh, you. can I ask what that is? And she said, sometimes I feel like your laptop is more important to you than me. And it wasn't like a malicious, there was no emotion to it. It was just very matter of fact, casual chat. And I said to her, oh, can you help me understand that? Like, when? And she said, well, sometimes I want your attention, but you're on your laptop. So, and I'll go, wow, this is stuff that I didn't even have awareness of. And I'm pretty careful, around my work and my home, but I work from home, so sometimes it can be tricky. And I said, what would it look like for you to know that you, even if I have work I need to do, that you are more important than the work? And we had this whole conversation around, well, I just need you to say, Elodie, I really love you. I'm doing this. And as soon as I'm done, I'll come and play with you. And I was like, my 7-year-old just told me exactly what she needs to feel seen and heard and important. Imagine if we could deploy that in businesses and actually teach adults how to have conversations like that.
Yeah.
It's not rocket science. It's not a trick. It's literally as simple as going, hey, you actually are really important to me, and I'm wondering what needs you have that aren't being met right now. How can we partner together to meet each other's needs in a healthy way?
Mm-hmm.
If you were feeling really seen by me, what would that look like? If you knew that you were so important to me, what would you be seeing or hearing from me? What would that tell me? And people will just go, oh, you would know my coffee order. Really?
Yeah.
All it's going to take for you to feel loved by me is that I know what coffee to order for you. Done. Wow. And it's just exploring that instead of these expectations and, yeah, constant
But
standards.
it also begs to the idea, though, that, when we raise our children in a way that they feel safe to be able to express what you're doing in that's the ripple effect. Because when Elodie is, growing up and as an adult, she's going to already have that ability, right? She's going to have that ability to communicate in a clear, safe way.
Yeah. It's so powerful. And honestly, I really believe that. So my ideal client is that person, generally going to be a business owner who is a parent and a partner. And the reason for that is because when they transform this, I worked with a business here in Melbourne, maybe about 18 months ago, and it was a male-dominated industry, 19 men, and we did a lot of this work. And honestly, the first time I showed up there, they were sitting back in their chairs like this, like, what is this? Arms crossed, totally closed off. And I asked them to raise their hand if they had kids, and we literally tallied up how many kids there were just as the offspring of the men in that room.
Mm-hmm.
And then I spent 10 minutes going through childhood development and how we develop our brain and our sense of self and what we believe about ourselves that then forms the rest of our life. And I said, are your kids worth it? And by literally 10 minutes in, they were on elbows on their knees, leaning in, going, holy shit, you've got our attention. And just by leveraging the impact that what I was going to do with them would have on the development of their kids, because no one wakes up in the morning and goes, how can I screw up my kids for the rest of their life? No one does that. But yet we all screw up our kids for the rest of their life. So hello, I'm just going to tell you how you're screwing up your kids for the rest of your life, for the rest of their lives. And then I'm going to tell you how not to screw up your kids for the rest of their lives. And also that's going to help this business. So can we do that? And within 18 months, I think that business doubled their profits. Their workplace morale had never been better. People's needs were being met. And it came down to, I mean, there was lots that we did, but at the most basic level, it was understanding every individual and what was their needs. The guy who has no family yet, but he's young and he's hungry and he's wants to do all the overtime because he's saving for a house, his needs are going to be really different to the guy who's got the season of young kids at home, whose wife is just completely stressed and exhausted, and 4 o'clock comes and she just wants her husband home. So he doesn't want the overtime and he doesn't want this. And then you've got the ones just about to retire who don't have any interest in the innovation and this and that and that. They're just rocking up to tick over the time until they can retire, but they're still a great input into the business. And like every single human is a whole person, but when that is their workplace, the workplace benefits, but so too does every other aspect of their life. How cool is that?
Very cool.
So cool.
All right. So I have one more question for you. And this is not planned, people listening. What would you say is the key to success for your clients? Oh no, we're frozen a little.
No, I just was just taking a breath. I don't think we're frozen. I was just taking a moment. The key to success for my clients is, first of all, self-awareness. If we don't have awareness, and from there are ready. Have you got me back?
Yeah, your audio is cutting in and out a little bit, so we didn't hear everything that you said.
Okay, I'll say it again. Have you got me?
I hope so.
Awesome. So I had said, for me, the first step always comes down to self-awareness. If we don't have self-awareness, we're literally a victim to it. And an absolute humility, like ourselves, our old way of doing, and lean in to a constant evolution of coming home to us, our true self, and evolving constantly. It's not something where you just show up, constant commitment that gets to be, it can either be a grind or it can be a blessing. And I choose for that to be a blessing, where my evolution is a constant gift for me to go deeper and for me to go further. And every time I do, I get closer.
So we lost the end of what you just said.
That's all right.
Okay, so last but absolutely not least, if people want to contact you, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Yeah, so all of our Remind social media platforms, it's just at remind.institute. That's the Remind stuff. For me, it's just Dr. Moreland on all of our handles. And I would love for people to get in touch and let me know what they got out of this and what's the one thing they're going to change in their life as a result of this conversation. Like, the thing is, we can know more, but unless we actually take action and change things, nothing changes.
100%.
So if this conversation activated or inspired you just to make one change or take one action, I would love to hear from people what that is.
Oh, Ash, thank you so much for taking the time to have this chat with me.
Thank you for having me. I'm sorry about the connection issue, but amazing. We got through most of it.
We got through most of it, and we'll do the best we can to edit whatever, it'll be beautiful.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.